is going on, all you wonderful A-Plusers out there? It is I, Stuart, here, once again, with another review, this time talking about Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. The reason I kind of slowed down there is that it's a little bit of a tongue twister for me, not gonna lie. Saying Ant-Man and the Wasp really fast, I don't know. But overall, so this, of course, is the next installment within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I think my expectations weren't necessarily high, but I definitely was looking forward to watching this because I did really enjoy the previous two X-Men, sorry, Ant-Man movies. I really did enjoy the two of them. They definitely weren't my favorite in terms of MCU movies, but with that being said, they're just a fun time, and you know exactly what to expect when you watch them. This one, however, I was a little bit let down with, not gonna lie. I'm not gonna say this is a bad movie, and I'm definitely not gonna try to tell anyone not to watch this, especially if you love the MCU, or if you love Paul Rudd, or you just love Ant-Man. Definitely go see it, because I could see a lot of people disagreeing with me on this review, and that is totally fine. But for me, it didn't hit me the same way the previous two Ant-Man movies have, and it really felt like kind of a really low-end movie in terms of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, in terms of Marvel movies. If I'm being honest, I would kind of rank this kind of in the same ballpark as the Incredible Hulk and Thor: Dark World. I really didn't like this movie, but I also can't say it's a bad movie because it was watchable for sure. But it just wasn't as, it's definitely not going to be one of the most memorable it's just not going to be one of the most memorable Marvel movies out there. So, it surprised me to say that because, again, my expectations weren't the highest, but I thought I knew what to expect kind of going into this, but I was a little bit wrong. And the other thing too was seeing that one of the writers I believe it was one of the same writers that worked on the Loki TV show, was also going to be working on this. And that got me, I think, a little bit more excited, because I thought the idea of a Rick and Morty writer working on an Ant-Man movie, I mean, it felt like the perfect combo, especially with Paul Rudd as Ant-Man working with that kind of material. I thought, I could see this going really well. And unfortunately, again, it not a bad movie, but it just didn't hit me the way I was hoping it would. So what didn't I like about the movie? Well, first of all, I think the character dynamics just weren't as interesting as they usually come in these, they're not as interesting as the dynamics that you usually come to expect within the Marvel movie. What do I mean is, I feel like there's barely an arc for everyone, and what their arc is, you will literally be able to figure it out from the very beginning of the movie. And it also feels like kind of a similar complaint I had with Thor: Love and Thunder. It feels like there's too much taken out of this movie. They kept the plot intact, but it feels like there's a lot of story that was supposed to go in terms of a lot of the character growth and stuff that just ended up not being there. So essentially the first 10 minutes, what they set up, I actually really, really liked. So essentially there's a little friction between Scott Lang and his daughter. Not a lot to make either one of them unlikable, but enough for, you could see where they would have their disagreements and whatnot. And maybe that might have been one of the first mistakes, is because they really wanted to make both Scott and his daughter likable characters. And so therefore you didn't have Scott overreacting when, when he found out that his daughter was in jail, but he was very clearly concerned, and she was just kind of in that kind of whatever, but again, not hard argument of stage or anything like that. It just kind of felt like they were having a bit of a disagreement on certain things, and I think because of that, there was less that they were able to play around with when they ended up going into the quantum realm, and maybe that was one of the biggest things. But anyways, all this to say, I did like the setup that they were trying to go for with their dynamic, but it feels like once they go into the quantum realm, basically after this 10-minute mark, and this isn't a spoiler because it's in the trailer, but they get into the quantum realm, and that's just where the movie, in terms of story, really went downhill for me. In terms of visuals, though, very mixed bag, and I'll get back to that a little bit more if I remember, which hopefully I will. But going back to overall character dynamics, so you had that going on, and basically it was one of those movies where the group gets separated, and so they're in pairs. So Scott's with his daughter, and then the Wasp, Janet, I think. Yeah, I'm really bad with names, and I'm kind of stoned. Sorry about that, but she ends up, of course, being split off with her parents, and there really isn't much like that they do. Like whenever we cut from one group to another, it just kind of feels like we're doing exposition scenes with one character. Now let's go back to another character to do some exposition scenes. There's not enough. There's a little bit of like just kind of one-on-one conversations between characters that aren't relating to the plot, but more talk about, their relationship and things like that. But they're so far in between, and they're so basic and just like very fast paced and all that they're not even memorable at all. So and because of this, it just kind of it's kind of like the same complaint that I had about the 2016 Suicide Squad movie. It feels like you're just watching a movie where characters go from one place to another and then to another. Between Janet and her group, essentially, her and her mom basically have this just thing where her mom just isn't telling them everything. She's like just kind of like saying there's no time, when really there is a lot of time. Like they're literally walking, there's nothing in their way, and Janet's like, there's no time to explain what's going on, we have to get out of here. And it's like, what are you doing? You're literally walking. You're walking forward. You have plenty of time to explain. If they had like enemies fighting them or something like that, then it's like, okay, fair. Now you have another interruption. But they didn't do that. They were literally just walking, and there was just no reason that there wasn't time to like explain, except for, of course, for a story structure. Obviously, it'd be uninteresting if we found out everything right then and there. So it makes sense that you don't want to give it all away. But give them something interesting then going on to lead to a good reason of why she can't explain everything then and there. You know what I mean? Now the comedy, because this is of course a comedy, and unfortunately, again, this is another area where the movie falls flat. Basically, it's kind of the same complaint that I do have with other comedic moments in some Marvel movies, like specifically Guardians of the Galaxy 2 had this issue with me, and then a little bit of Thor Ragnarok as well. But that is when they kind of go the Seth MacFarlane humor route, where I know a lot of people think of Seth MacFarlane and think of cutaway gags, which is accurate, but in this case I'm referring to like kind of another thing that he tends to do that I've noticed a lot more comedies doing a lot more, that I just don't like, which is like when they say a joke that just isn't really funny, and then they just really repeat that joke over and over and hoping that they can force a laugh out of you, but it's just not gonna happen. So it was the Thor swinging on a rope for me in Thor Ragnarok. It was the taser face bit in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, and here there's actually a few bits that are like that for me in here, where it's like, okay, this joke wasn't funny the first time, and you're saying the same joke a little more than 3 times, so it's like you're even breaking the rule of 3 there, but whatever. Anyways, so there's a few moments like that in this movie, and when it's not doing that, it's just, there is humor that gave me chuckles, but I don't think I laughed out loud like once in the entire movie, unfortunately. And that also might be due to the crowd that I was watching this movie with, because it was a small crowd. But as I was working this, theater in the later round, I did notice a lot more people laughing at the joke. So it may honestly just be because for me, I was just watching it with the wrong crowd. I'm sure maybe if I was with a bigger crowd, I actually would have gotten a laugh out of it, and it may have actually boosted my enjoyment of this movie. That's a huge possibility, honestly. I'm not even gonna lie there. There might be an alternate version of this review where I watched it with a bigger crowd and I walked out of the movie enjoying it more. That alternate universe probably exists out there, okay? So I will actually have to mention that. I didn't laugh too much at the movie. I chuckled a few times, but the crowd that I was, working when I was working at the Draft House, which again is like a restaurant, like movie theater, in case you guys don't know, they were laughing. So it may have actually just been me there, and maybe the humor was a lot better than I'm giving it credit for. It's very possible it's because of the audience I watched it with. But that all being said, dang, I dragged that out really long. I just didn't find the movie as funny as the previous two Ant-Man movies, which is really surprising to me because usually if Paul Rudd's in a movie, you know what, I'm gonna laugh my ass off at some point. But in this one, not so much, which is just too bad. So I really focused on some negative things that I didn't like in this movie. Now there is, of course, a couple of positive things that I want to reiterate. Well, one of them I want to reiterate. The other one I haven't even talked about yet. But the first thing I really want to talk about, though, is, again, I do think the first 10 minutes of this movie was pretty good. I also think the ending was almost awesome if they cut it a little bit earlier. There's a moment in this movie where just something happens, and if they had just literally cut it right there, I would have been like, okay, that was perfect. But they kept it going, and I'm like, oh man, why? You had the perfect time to just end the movie there, but nah. And it's not like it ruined the ending or anything like that. It's literally just that they added I think 10 more seconds of something else going on right after this really cool moment, and I don't think that last 10 seconds needed to be there, personally. And again, the first 10 minutes of the movie, like I mentioned earlier, I think that was actually when the jokes really hit me, and I was laughing my butt off during that first 10 minutes. But unfortunately, that was it. I also think, again, they set up the character dynamics really well. I just don't think they paid it off really good, or as good as I was hoping. But yeah, I do think the setup and everything was really good. A bravo first 10 minutes, which I think was just, act one of the movie. Because this movie's really short. So I guess if you like short movies, that's another bonus right there. So I talked about those, but here's the other positive thing that I was really excited to get to. Jonathan Majors as Kang. Wow. Okay. Great performance, and boy, does he really hype me up for future Marvel movies, because there are some setups, let's just say this isn't going to be the last we see of Kang the Conqueror, and the performance he gives in this is as good as I was hoping, pretty much. We see him playing a very different version of the character than the one that we see in Loki, which is not a spoiler because, again, that really gets shown in the trailers, and he absolutely nails that performance really well. There are issues I do have with some of the writing choices around him, though, and nothing has to do with his overall character or with his performance, more of just the writing for the battles. So anyways, his power just seems so inconsistent, because there's one point where you just kind of think, okay, literally no one in the MCU could really take him on right now. And then later on in the movie, you have the hero triumph kind of moment. The first part of the hero triumph moment, because it's kind of in two parts. I'm trying to figure out how to say it without spoiling it. But anyways, in the first part of it, he's just it's like he forgets he's overpowered. You know what I mean? His suit has all these amazing abilities, and it's almost like he forgot that he had those abilities, because he's getting his butt not kicked, but he's definitely not winning like you would assume he would be. You would assume this fight should literally be over like that, he even faster than if they were trying to fight Thanos, but no. Anyways, yeah, so it's just a bit of a letdown in that area, just a little bit, not a huge letdown, but a bit of a letdown, yeah. But that all being said, I love how I started this off with saying, hey, I'm going to be talking about something positive, and then I ended it with something negative. That all being said, not my cup of tea. This was definitely not my favorite Marvel movie, unfortunately, which obviously I knew it was going to be my favorite, but unfortunately it is kind of one of the lower end of the Marvel movies, in my opinion. Could there be an alternate version of me that enjoyed this movie because I saw it with a bigger crowd? Very, very possible. But unfortunately, as it stands, definitely not my favorite. I didn't think it was a bad movie, though. And if you are looking forward to watching this, definitely still watch this, because, you know, I have talked with this movie about, well, I have talked about this movie with some of my coworkers, and, you know, we all have very different opinions. Some of them actually really enjoyed this one. So I would say definitely watch it yourself and, you know, give your own personal thoughts on the movie. Definitely let me know in the comments below, because I want to hear if you guys like this movie, or if you guys dislike this movie. I also want to hear about it, guys. Let me know your overall thoughts on Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. Let me know your thoughts about it in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel. But of course, guys, above all, don't forget to keep it A+, and I will talk to you all later. Goodbye.